Welcome to Leonard Peltier's Tate Wikuwa Book Club. My name is Kimberly Laframboy, and tonight I have a co-host, and her name is Kim Park, and she's from the HeartOfTaos, and I invited her because a lot of her organizations, what they're working for aligns with Leonard's wishes for food forest and for sustainable living and for healthier environments for our future generations. And so I'd like to hand it over to Kim and welcome, and I'm so glad that everyone's here tonight.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Kimberly Park, Executive Director of HeartOfTaos, and we're basically focusing on one sustainable, affordable housing unit in Taos County by the end of 2023. And our permaculture food forest / garden has been officially moved by the board from last night to be an honor and dedicated to the hashtag Free Leonard Peltier movement. And I would love to introduce our special guest, Mr. Tom Morello. He is an American guitarist and musician from Los Angeles, California. He is also a political and human rights activist who supports the hashtag Free Leonard Peltier movement. He's best known for his tenure with multiple rock bands, including Rage Against the Machine and Audioslave. And we are so excited to have you here. And we're going to pass it off to him.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you. I have long been a supporter of Leonard Peltier and the movement to free him. As most of you probably know, Leonard Peltier is considered by many to be America's longest serving political prisoner. He's been in prison since 1975 when the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office convicted him of murdering 2 FBI agents during a shootout at the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. But they never had evidence that he committed a crime, and the level of misconduct that took place at his trial is baffling. Prosecutors hid exculpatory evidence. The FBI threatened and coerced witnesses into lying. All of his co-defendants were acquitted on grounds of self-defense. A juror admitted she was biased against Peltier's race on the second day of the trial, was allowed to remain on the panel. In an extraordinary letter to President Biden last year, James Reynolds, the U.S. attorney who oversaw Peltier's prosecution on the appeal, wrote, "I write today from a position rare for a former prosecutor, to beseech you, Mr. President, to commute the sentence of a man who I helped put behind bars." And to the late Judge Gerald Heaney, who presided over Peltier's 1986 appeal, later called for commuting his sentence, saying his trial was unjust and a healing process must begin. Anyway, that's just a starting point. So I just wanted to say hello and give you a little idea of like what brought me to be interested in Leonard Peltier's case. I grew up as the only Black kid in an all-white town in northern Illinois, in Libertyville, Illinois, at least according to the real estate that helped my mom and I find an apartment there. My mom's a lifetime human rights and civil rights advocate. And so the posters and the heroes that were in my house were very different than the kind of the conservative neighbors that we had around. And my hero, as a youth, included Cochise and Sitting Bull and Chief Joseph and Crazy Horse. I actually named my firstborn son Joseph in part after Chief Joseph, also after Joe Strummer of the Clash. There's more than one Joseph in his spiritual lineage, but the struggle of Native Americans for justice has always been one that I felt a kinship as a person of color. And Leonard Peltier's case and the heroes that I just mentioned there all sort of speak to one of the central tenets of one central pillars of American history, which is that this country is really founded on the idea that to demand liberty while embracing white supremacy. And from the earliest days of the earliest settlers to the colonists moving across the country to Leonard Peltier's imprisonment, I think that is still at the forefront. Let me see, what else do I have to say? Growing up, like my politicalization and my radicalization, didn't come from reading textbooks. It came from being the only Black kid in an all-white town. I was exposed to instances of injustice on the playground when I was a kindergarten. But the first time where I saw sort of like felt sort of action in the world, or felt that someone like me may be able to have my hands on the steering wheel of history, was during the Ames movement, the American Indian movement, and especially the standoff at Wounded Knee. It was the Black Panthers, it was the Weathermen, it was Cesar Chavez and the and the United Farm Workers. I was in this small conservative suburb, but this information was filtering that in other places, people were standing up for their rights. And some of the most heroic and bravest people standing up for their rights were members of the American Indian movement. How my band Rage Against the Machine got involved with the Leonard Peltier case is an interesting and an instructive one. We were in a band that was looked and sounded like now Rage Against the Machine later became a popular band, but at the time we had zero commercial ambitions. There were no bands on the radio that played a neo-Marxist heavy metal punk funk hip hop with a Chicano dude and a half black, half Irish Italian dude and a Jewish dude on drums and a big white tattooed bass player. Like that just did not exist anywhere. So our commercial ambitions were small. We didn't even think that we could like book a club show, let alone get a record deal. But times were changing, and in the aftermath of groups like Jane's Addiction and Nirvana and Living Colour having some commercial success, record companies were maybe for the first time realizing that maybe they didn't have all the answers. They didn't know what was going to sell. They just knew that like maybe we give these kids enough rope and see what they do with it. So Rage Against the Machine got a record deal. It was a very different band in the boardroom. We said we're never editing or censoring any of the lyrics from our songs. We have 100% control over every flyer that goes out, every advertisement, this, that, and the other. We were stubborn and we drove them absolutely fucking nuts. So we had a couple of hit songs in Europe because they had different censorship restrictions. There's a FCC here, which keeps swear words off the radio and MTV. It's different in Europe. So our songs Killing in the Name and Bullet in the Head had become these kind of MTV smash hits overseas. Meanwhile, we were still opening up for House of Pain and half empty clubs here in the United States, embarrassing the US record company. So this is a reveal here. The idea for Rage Against the Machine to make a video to try to free Leonard Peltier came not from the band, but came from the record company. They tried to think of an idea that we couldn't say no to. So they're like, hey guys, we under that Killing in the Name song, that's got 16 fuck yous and one motherfucker in it. That one's not going to work. Bullet in the Head's got a lot of screaming, a lot of fuck yous in it too. Can't have that one. They tried to like out punk rock us. They're like, okay, there's a song on your record that's 6.5 minutes long, has no discernible chorus or hooky elements to it. What if we gave you guys the money to make a video for that song to try to free Leonard Peltier, and we'll push it on MTV with everything we got? Like daring us to say no to that. And we didn't say no to that. We said yes to that. So that's when the fun and when the trouble began. So we made this video, an excellent video. Peter Christopherson was the director. Where we basically told, if you haven't seen it, after this, look it up. It's on YouTube. We made a video that is basically tells the case of Leonard Peltier, and the idea was to introduce his case to an entirely new generation of young people, potential music fans and potential activists. But the insidious thing that the record company did was they chose that song not because of its like sort of punk rock appeal, that it was long and had no chorus. They chose that song because it had no curse words in it, because we weren't going to censor any curse words, and you couldn't have any curse words to get on the radio and MTV. So we filmed the video, and it's not an inexpensive video to film, but it's this great sort of case made to get Leonard to free Leonard Peltier. And the record company guy and I are sitting in the back of the tour bus watching the edit of it. Now, at the time, there's a company called Viacom. All videos have to be approved by who owns MTV. All videos have to be approved by Viacom in order for them to get on MTV. So all of the corporate Sony lawyers have combed this video for any objectionable content, and we're watching the video in the back of the bus, and we finish watching it, and I tell the record company executive, we're doomed. They'll never play this on TV. He's like, what are you talking about? We've checked all the boxes. It's perfectly fine. I said, no. There's a swear word in it. He's like, there are no swear words in it. We looked at the lyrics. We checked it against the lyrics on the record. There are no. I said, dude, it's not in the lyrics. It's like when the big riff comes in, Zach yells, bring that shit in. And the record company looks me square in the eye and goes, we're doomed. They're never going to play that on MTV. And I said, well, what if he's not saying bring that shit in? What if he is saying the Aztec word for freedom, which is shateen? What if he is saying bring the shateen in? We are bringing the freedom in when the beat drops there. Now, is the Aztec word for freedom shateen? Well, as far as the folks at Viacom know, it is, because they put that video on MTV and they played it 300 million times, and Rage Against the Machine blew up and everybody learned about Leonard Peltier. So that's how that happened. All right, next on my list of things that happened, that video did have it didn't free Leonard Peltier, but it did have the impact of introducing a substantial audience. I mean, that video was on like a bunch of times every day when everybody was watching MTV, of younger people to the cause, which led to us playing a benefit show to raise funds for Leonard Peltier's release. The show had Cypress Hill, Stanford Prison Experiment, the band X, and the Beastie Boys playing, in Los Angeles here. Now, this was in, I believe the year was 1996. At the time, Rage Against the Machine was ascendant. We were very cocky about our live shows and that we were playing a hometown show in Los Angeles, a town which we felt we had sort of in our back pocket. Los Angeles loves Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine loves Los Angeles. There's no possibility that another band on that bill could kick our asses on that night. Boy, were we wrong. So the night's going well. Beastie Boys come out wearing nothing but like UPS suits and playing their 10 biggest hits in a row, and the place goes absolutely bananas. Rage Against the Machine, we opened with a 16-minute long Allen Ginsberg poem. And there were a lot of crickets in the house. But anyway, we raised a lot of money for Leonard Peltier, but it was really the first time that another band left their boot in Rage Against the Machine's ass, and it was the Beastie Boys. We later got them back at the Mumia Abu-Jamal benefit, but that's for a different call. One of the things that is important in the current struggle to get Leonard Peltier to freedom, he is currently in a maximum security facility, and in order to make it make it easier for Biden to grant him clemency, bringing him to a minimum security facility is key. You don't kind of go from maximum security to going home. So there's being some funds raised, I think, in part through what we're talking about here, in that effort to help with that. So Leonard, as you may or may not know, is a very, very talented artist, visual. He's a great painter, and a couple of his works are going to be auctioned off, I believe, through the Taos. At the end of this, somebody can tell you more. I don't have the specifics about that, but some of Leonard's artwork is going to be auctioned off to help with some of the legal fees to help in this very important step to give him what is probably his best last chance at freedom, which is a Biden clemency. I bring up the paintings because Leonard and I have been friends for some time, and when my first son Joseph was born, Leonard did a painting for him called Strong One. It's an awesome painting of a bison out on the plains, and it's right in the hallway of my house. And I wish I should have taken a picture of it to show you, but it's really beautiful. And Leonard's a tremendously talented artist. Also on, I think, Rage Against the Machine's first platinum album, we used the backdrop of, rather than having like, X number sold and that, we used one of Leonard's paintings, in part as a thanks for sort of lending his story to our song Freedom, which helped that occur, but also out of love and respect for him and his cause. We are up against a lot when it comes to getting Leonard out of jail. The cowardice of, you can't expect any of the Republican presidents, but the cowardice of Clinton and the cowardice of Obama were very disappointing. And so we hope that it's only through, Leonard's case is one that has always not just been litigated in the courts, but also in the streets, and now via social media. And so the more that we can help amplify this message as each generation learns about him, it takes the young, not just those of us who've been involved in it for decades now, but younger voices as well, to apply that pressure and to let people know that there's accountability if Leonard is not freed. Recently, we Rage Against the Machine did a 5-night stand in New York City's Madison Square Garden, and one of those nights was dedicated to Leonard Peltier, where we did our best to broadcast some of the facts of his case and the ongoing need to free Leonard Peltier, not just as America's as the United States' longest-standing political prisoner, but as one small way to right the millions of wrongs that have been done to Native peoples, and to galvanize this generation, the older generation, the new generation, on this crucially important human rights case. That's kind of all I have to say, other than thank you very much, all of you who have been involved in the efforts to free Leonard Peltier, and those of you who may now consider joining the efforts to free Leonard Peltier. And I think there's going to be some time for me to answer a few questions now.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Estelle. Thank you so much. That was very informing and really, really cool. So go ahead, Estelle.
I do not
So
hear.
there aren't, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Tom. It's great to have you here. There aren't a whole lot of questions right now.
Okay.
Someone had asked what the name of that first song that you were talking about was.
It's called Freedom. Freedom
Okay.
by Rage Against the Machine. And
Yeah.
that's the video is one that, you know, it's worth the 6 minutes. And listen when he says, bring the shatteen. Seriously.
I will, definitely.
Hey, Estelle.
Decide for yourself. Decide for yourself.
Hey, I posted a link to it in the chat.
Okay, cool.
Great.
We'll be playing it at the end tonight.
Yes, you
so
did.
If you guys
Okay,
want to
cool.
stick around and listen to it.
Cool.
So,
And I think someone else asked, what advice would you give to a beginning activist? That
Oh, geez. Well, the advice, it's funny, I asked that same question once long ago to Noam Chomsky, and he basically shamed me. And he said, I'm the one that gets advice from beginning activists. I don't give it to beginning activists. Like they tell me what they're doing. It's not me telling them what they're supposed to do. So, but I will not shame the question asker, because I felt like, hey man, I'm just trying out here. So the first advice I give is to, one, have a North Star. Aim for the world that you really want without compromise in any way. Like, have that be the North Star, but then to act and to, like, I'll give you an example, like sort of my first, while I had these ideas in my head, my first foray into the world of activism could not have been more local. I was working on the high school paper in Libertyville, Drops of Ink, and we wanted to write stories about apartheid and about US death squads in Central America. And they wanted us to write stories about prom and, you know, the football game and this, that, and the other. And so there was a mass exodus from the paper, and we formed our own, I guess you'd call it an underground paper called the Student Pulse, where we wrote about apartheid and Central American death squads and the fact that the dean of students was a dick. And they were like furious, and they like, you know, you can't pass that out in the halls. And it forced us to sort of consider, like we have these ideas. It seems like perhaps the First Amendment applies to 16 and 17-year-olds as well. So we called the Chicago ACLU and said, can they do that? And they said, we'll be right over. And we gave a civics lesson to the Libertyville Public High School. And that was the moment where I realized that, like, you don't need to necessarily, it's fine to join Amnesty International or whatever, you know, group, or the union at the Starbucks or whatever, but just like wherever you live, set your sights on creating more justice. And when there's pushback, that's an opportunity to sort of sharpen your knives in how to change the world. And that instance there, which was sort of totally unexpected, we just kind of, you know, used our intelligence and creativity and what we had at hand to make a paper. And then we kind of said, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, when they told us not to pass it out in the hallways. And it led to the first time where I realized that even as a teenager, not just as a teenager, but anybody can have their hands on the wheels of history. And I think at the end of the day, that's really like a truism, is that the world is not going to change itself. That's up to you.
Okay, great. Andrew Fuller, are you there? Can you unmute and ask your question? Andrew?
I'd like to say first that Andrew is from Leonard the Leonard podcast, and they're doing a documentary on Leonard right now. And he's been a guest before here on the book club. So
Okay.
welcome, Andrew.
Cool.
Hey guys, thank you. I didn't have a question. Maybe I raised my hand by accident, but
Well, what's up, man? How you doing?
I would like to say to Tom, thank you so much. You did an advocacy break for our podcast for Leonard. What you just said there was absolutely incredible. I follow you on social media, so I love seeing pictures of you and your mom. I didn't know she was an activist before, so that's friggin' awesome. But yeah, I don't want to take up anyone's time here. So thank you for all you do. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I'll let my mom know. My mom turned 99 on October 1st and remains the most radical and the most popular member of the Morello family. And I'm gonna, as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna have dinner with her. So let me know.
So we had a couple other quick questions. Someone asked how you spell Shatine.
Well, I would say, why don't you ask the Viacom standards and practices department about that? I don't really, my attorneys say I'm not really allowed to talk about that.
Okay. All right. And so someone else asked, they were curious how you met Leonard or how you got in touch with him.
Got in touch with him. It was, I mean, it was in it was called the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee, I believe was the name of the group that was doing all they could when at the time we were making the Freedom video. That's and they put us in touch with Leonard and we became like pen pals and actually had him on we did a thing called Radio Free Los Angeles. It was on inauguration night 1997, which was quite a radio show. We had Chomsky and Leonard Peltier and Mumia Abu-Jamal and Subcommandante Marcos and like Cypress Hill played and Raid, some of us played and Flea played, and it was just he's just always been, he's a hero of mine, and he's like a like I said, he's a really a living example of centuries of injustice. And so it's very, like to have him out would be a really great moment in our history of turning the tide.
Absolutely. And also, like someone said, is there a possibility for some sort of concert to bring attention to and funding for Leonard, or any talk about something like that?
Yeah, there've been a number of concerts through the years, and if there's a concert, I'd be happy to play one, as long as the Beastie Boys don't kick my ass again. Even if they did, that's totally fine.
Okay. That's okay. Someone else said, question for Tom, is he going to throw down with us next year against Enbridge Line 5?
I'm not sure I know what that is.
I think that's one of the pipelines, isn't it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Answer is yes. I'm going to throw down.
Okay. For some reason I've got to. And that's what I have right now.
Okay. I believe Lisa's here who does the commemoration, and she had a question. If you want to unmute yourself, Lisa, welcome. Hi, Lisa. And you can tell a little bit about the commemoration. I saw you had put something in the chat also.
Hi,
Okay.
Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I'm Lisa. I'm the one gonna set up for you in St. Louis at your
Oh, great.
concert.
Great.
And I do the commemoration in South Dakota, so you need to come up and march with us for
Okay.
Leonard.
I would love to.
Going in our 24th year, so we're still there.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for your service.
Okay, so now we'll just hand it back over to Kim Park from HeartOfTaos. And thank you so much, Tom. And
Hey, thank you guys very much. I gotta go. My mom's bedtime's coming up, so I gotta go have a quick dinner with her before she goes off to sleep tonight.
Thank you, Tom.
But thank you all very much
Okay.
for your
Thank you.
ongoing, for your perseverance and your efforts to free Leonard Peltier. And thank you all for listening, and take
Thank you.
care, have courage, see you around.
Thank you.
Take it easy, but take it.
Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so Kim, did you want to unmute and talk a little bit about and then we're gonna also listen to the song Freedom. So I'm
Yeah,
handing it over to Kim.
it looks like Luther has his hand up, but Tom left. So do you still want to talk, Luther? Sorry.
I'm on a speaker view here.
Sorry about that. We didn't know he was gonna leave, I think at 7 exactly. So but if everyone's interested, I can play the video right now, and then we can kind of go into what Dawn, Kimberly, we've been talking about in terms of raising those funds for that transfer. Is that cool with everyone? You want to hear some rage? All right, cool. Hopefully this works. Okay. Oh wait, I need to share my screen.
That was awesome. Oh my gosh, we just had Tom Morello at our book club, everyone. That was pretty awesome. So I'm gonna let Kim talk a little bit, but I just wanted to remind everyone to use hashtag Free Leonard Peltier, call the White House 202-456-1111. Email the White House at www.whitehouse.gov/contact. There is a clemency petition, as he said, currently before Biden, and contact your senators. Tell them to get on board. Let's free Leonard Peltier, everyone. And so I'll hand it back over to Kim. Thank you all tonight for coming. It was great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kimberly, for setting it all up. You've been working so hard with this book club for so long, and we just really appreciate you.
Thank
Because
Leonard, everyone. Thank Leonard. Write him a letter. He's the one who invited Tom. So write him a letter. Tell him that we haven't forgotten him. Go ahead, Kim.
Awesome. Oh, Luther, did you want to say something? Oh, you're muted.
There I go. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. This is very cool. This is my first meeting, and I'm sure I'll be attending many more. Let's free Leonard Peltier.
Thanks, and thanks for joining us. I mean, I'm fairly new to the book club too, but I just wanted to say welcome, and I also wanted to give a little quick shout out to Naomi Concha, who's here from Taos Pueblo. So I'm just glad that we have someone from Taos here. But so, yeah, there's just a couple things that we are working on with Dawn and Paulette and Kimberly, because we do need to raise money for those funds to work on that transfer. We're currently working on a plan of basically trying to create not only money, but traction towards his movement and who he is, right? Because that's just a lot of information that people don't have. So what we were hoping to do is have it kind of be like a traveling piece where it's generating not only donations, but also traction for his movement. And then hopefully lead to a scheduled auction, so that if there's a gap in the funding that we did not raise during the viewing of the pieces, then we can know what that gap is. And then hopefully at the auction, we can create awareness. And that's where the social media, I see a lot of you here, would then help spread the word to then gain traction for that gap in funding. So we are working with Paulette to figure out all of the financing and how the money is going to flow, because that is definitely how we want to ensure the money is going directly for this specific thing and not to any other thing. So we want to ensure that all the checks and balances are in place. So working with Paulette on that. So I guess just be on the lookout for that when we do make it public, and hopefully it will gain traction. The other thing that I did want to mention is that in regards to the food forest movement. So that is something huge that Kimberly and Leonard have been really wanting to do. And in part, it's really aligned with Heart's mission to doing this one little sustainable unit. And we are a tiny little service organization, and we're only doing our best that we can, right? Like I told everyone involved, like, hey, I'm not promising I can do anything or we can do anything great, but we're going to try. And the reason for that is because right, as Tom said, that, you know, Leonard being in prison wrongfully for so long is a representation of really how Native people have been oppressed for so long. And because we're in Taos, we're very connected with Taos Pueblo, and, you know, working in the community, including, you know, homelessness and substance use. And it all comes down to the foundation of housing instability. So whether that's the physical home of housing instability or instability within the home due to, you know, bills being too high, utility bills being too high, you know, that is the thing that we are trying to tackle. So my background comes from the permanent supportive affordable housing development world. So like your federal tax credit projects. The reason why I left Los Angeles was because really LA County back then in 2017 needed 500,000 units of affordable housing. And as an industry, we were only generating 5,000 units as a whole industry, all the agencies combined together. And so in Taos experienced a very similar experience of like tourism. So you see the why affordability issues happen, because the locals who work there and live there cannot meet the high rents and housing costs and living costs that the tourism and the, you know, second home buyers and, you know, vacation home rentals, because they see, oh, Taos is so cheap. Well, you're actually causing affordability issues for the local people. And what happens is the youth, they then leave these rural communities, and you generally or naturally divest in communities as you're losing your market or your youth and your people who run things. So the way that Heart wants to tackle this is to just commit to one concept model to really show how we tackle the affordability issue through sustainability. And not only that, but basically create these healthy living ecosystems, right? So Sunshine, one of our board members, who's also from Taos Pueblo and Naomi's cousin, basically is telling me to tell you that we as people are part of the earth and the ecosystem. So we need to live amongst it and with it. That's why sustainability makes sense, because you are building with the sun, with water catchment. We are planned because we love, you know, that concept, and it is all based on native and indigenous ways of building by earth, right? Because we don't have any more wood left. So, and it's better insulation. So if you can do that naturally, then we slowly take that money back into our own pockets and then create that long-term stability for not just, you know, our most vulnerable populations, like people experiencing homelessness, but we can all do this to then take a little bit back from utility systems that have actually been created by oppressive systems, right? So it's basically, you know, your PG&E was created to take advantage of an influx of people going to the gold rush, and they're like, oh, we can take advantage of all these people. So when a system or, you know, a country is based on oppression, then you see the long-term effects over the years and over the generations, which then leads me to the active genocide of Native and Indigenous women. So New Mexico has the highest reported cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And there are hundreds and thousands of reports that are not reported. And so the oppression of Leonard Peltier and him being in jail wrongfully, and all, it's literally a representation of, you know, what is occurring right now and why we need to support these communities, because we need to basically create healthy communities to make people less vulnerable to violence. So if we connect not only the housing and living, but the support services like case management, we're checking in every week. And then also, you know, making sure everyone who's involved, maintenance people, property management, are all trauma informed. So we're all coming from a place of housing retention and not eviction. And the only way we can address the high housing costs is to build naturally through the earth. So for example, adobe is a great way to build a home. However, you do need more materials and more time, because it needs to have an insulation in between the adobe insulation and then adobe, so that the weather outside is not the weather inside. So Taos Pueblo is basically the leader of adobe building and earth builds and living, you know, in the concept of sovereignty. And so all of this is all based in the concept of sovereignty. And how do we tackle all of these issues of climate change, of homelessness, of, I don't know, oppression, systems of oppression? Well, we have to take that money back. And how do we do that? Well, the things that we're forced to pay into, the high housing costs, the utility costs, healthcare costs and blah, 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 gas and oil, right? So if we then combine efficient technology to work for us, we can then create income opportunities in these communities by using that technology and creating these fun, cool opportunities for our youth to stay here and live this way and want to live here. And they want to live here, they just see no opportunity. So how do we do this? Well, this is how we do it. And if we build foundationally sustainably, then we can cut those costs naturally. And if Heart can generate one and hopefully balloon into a large community project, then we can then create lower costs per unit as we create economies of scale. And our goal is to then create pathways for all of us to understand, how do I become more sustainable and get off the teat, right? The corporate, slavery and all that stuff that we all we're like, oh my God, the government needs to save us. They're not going to save us. So this is how we do this. And the reason why I know it works, because we actually did it ourselves. My husband and I literally left Burbank and paying $1,500, and driving. So you're driving constantly, right? In traffic, all that stuff. So if you can do more remote work or really balance that and try to balance like, hey, let's do a entrepreneur thing, and then let's create this e-commerce business for you to do bead work or blah, 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 blah. There's so many talented people, but we need to create that support system to allow them to, get there, because we're not starting at ground zero, right? We all think, oh, we're starting at ground zero. No, these are people who have had all the adverse childhood effects, that we work with, and homelessness in itself is a traumatic event. So even though you're like, oh, he was just homeless, that in itself is trauma. When you're simply trying to survive, that in itself, your mentality changes. So that's why we need to create permanent communities, because that simple change in mentality of permanence allows you to start healing. So and I don't know how many times I have to say this, but there's so many research, and I can send references and backup information of why this will work. But just simply in terms of cost, it will work. And the reason why it hasn't been done is because people are ego driven and they want to promote their product, this and that. So they keep those utility costs for those renters, right? So you're like, why am I still paying when I'm getting free solar? Well, that's why you have to really build purely from the ground up and have a mission that you're trying to attack affordable housing. Because if housing was affordable for everyone, we would simply just call it housing. And whenever people come to me and say, oh, well, I can't build that way, I'm like, that's why people like me exist, because people are only looking at profit and not the people. And so, and it's like, we got to change the way we think. And if I can show this one concept, there are multiple community agencies in our Taos community that want to then do this, and including a local church that maybe wants to donate their land to start another 4 to 6 unit project. So, and so really all I'm asking is be on the lookout on our social media and share it. We think that, I'm going in for some federal funds and seeing if they will fund something this crazy. They've told me no in the past, but hey, maybe it will work. But if we can just share the idea, it's about the concept so that we can all get off the corporate slavery, right? And so what we do is, okay, we put you into low-income apartments, then you're forced to go work at Walmart. How are you ever supposed to come out of debt or whatever when you're simply just feeding people back into the system? So this is, basically how, combined with my background of community and affordable housing development, combined with my husband's experience and professional background in recyclable and sustainable. And we basically had this crazy blowout, oh my God, this is how you get off the oppression. And then basically it starts with housing, utilities, food, and then you holy shit, you can go into insurance and banking and that's where Chief Mitigaw comes in. He's got this plan. Can we do it in the US and combine forces, right? So that's basically what we're trying to do here. And there's a lot of people, that I've met in Taos who've been in prison, and they had this little tiny home that they did. They had a little water catchment thing. But because the propaganda and the way our society views everything, he was looking down on himself for that. So when I presented at a local class, he was in there and I said, do you realize that the billionaires are the ones who are doing everything wrong? And you, if you do these things, are doing it right and helping all these factors by just living and existing in this type of community. He comes up to me afterwards. He goes, oh my God, I'm literally doing all these things. And I'm like, you're literally the solution. And his attitude just flipped and he became proud. And that's what I want. It's like, you have the power and we can do it. We just need an organization to help support everyone. And that's basically what we're trying to do as such, a small little organization in Taos. But I'm going to stop.
That's really amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. She does have some great ideas, and it's all aligned with Leonard's vision for, like I said earlier, he's sitting in prison and he's worried about us. And so I think we definitely need to have Kim back to talk some more about that. But quickly, I wanted to give a shout out. I hope I'm not putting him on the spot, but Nathan Phillips is here. And if you don't know who he is, he's an elder and someone that we very respect and love. And it's just awesome to see him here. Can you give a little wave, Nathan? He's done the teepee on the mall right now, and he has a fire burning for Native youth. So I just wanted to say hi and give him a little honor and say welcome, and we're glad to have you here tonight. Thank you for coming. So,
hello.
Hi. So how's it going there in Washington?
This is December 1st, 2nd now.
First, yeah.
And we've been here since the 1st of November, but we didn't get our fire lit until the 3rd. So my daughter, who pulled the permit, got an extension, and we're going to be here till Saturday morning. And she wants me to go live sometime. Well, not her, but some friends want me to go live from here if it's possible. I don't know how to do that, but we're going to try to get me live before we leave the mall sometime.
That would be amazing. Yeah, if you need some help with anything, just reach out to me. So thank you for coming tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Okay, so again, next week we're going to have Tim Maxfield. He's a flute maker and kind of interesting. He's also an activist and kind of TikTok famous. So that's going to be really cool. If you guys would all like to join us next week, you're welcome to come. And any new people that haven't been here before, and come again. This is a great group of people, and we meet on Thursdays, and we have a great bunch of. I'd like to really share the YouTube channel. If you can find our YouTube channel and share it, because us listening to all of this talk and advocating for Leonard, just to get the story out there, that would be really appreciated. And I thank Heart of Taos and Kim Park and for coming tonight. It was a wonderful thing. And just, oh gosh, Tom Morello came to our book club. I'm still excited about it. Does anybody else want to add anything? If not, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And don't forget to hashtag Free Leonard Peltier. Write him a letter and tell him that we haven't forgotten about him, and our words of encouragement encourage him. So and thank you all so much for coming. It's been a blessed night, and it was so cool to see you all, new faces, and welcome. Come again. All right, I'll be quiet now.
I just want to mention December 15th, Julie Richards will be here from Sunday.
We can't hear you, Dawn. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Dawn. Go again, please.
I muted myself and got muted again. Julie Richards will be here December 15th, and she's dealing with the things you were talking about, Sam. Living in a peanut trailer with a bunch of kids that have been orphaned by men. And she's going to speak about the devastation the oil companies have brought. really like. Oh,
Yeah, maybe we could just do a little moment and just in honor of Eileen Janice. She died from cancer, which was from uranium poisoning on Pine Ridge. And so, I mean, the effects of what happened, what Leonard and the American Indian movement were trying to stop all of those years ago, we're now seeing the effects of it now today, and people are dying of cancer today. That was the main reason, was to protect those traditionalists that were against the drilling of the uranium. And that's why the American Indian movement was called in. And if had they been successful, people wouldn't be suffering and dying there today. So I just want to give a little bit of honor to her and her life. And amazing woman who's worked hand in hand, was a friend of Leonard's, and also did the toy drive. There's an annual toy drive that Leonard sponsors for the children on Pine Ridge. If you guys can do donations to that, there's a couple of fundraisers going on, and I'll post them later for us. But just thank you all for coming in. This is like, I just love our group, and it's amazing to have you all here. So. Good night. Have a good night and come back, please. Bye.
Night.
Good night.
Love